Welcome to Absolute Pursuit, the podcast for founders, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are ready to level up their business and life. I'm your host, Jason McDermott, and each week we're going to explore the strategies, principles, and mindset shifts that drive true leadership and success. So get ready to take the next step in your leadership journey because your absolute pursuit starts now. Hey, how about that for an intro there, John?
Hey, that was fantastic. I loved it. It was inspiring.
I literally just made it like 5 minutes before we started the show. All right. Well, as I said, my name is Jason McDermott, and this is the Absolute Pursuit podcast. And I have a guest today, John Duran with Maximal Men Movement. And we're going to dive deep. And yeah, John, this is actually going to be, I'll call it our first episode. So this is going to be raw, dirty, and ugly. That's what this episode is going to be. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like real life is what you're telling me.
That's right. That's right. And thank you for being the guinea pig. I don't know if you know what you signed up for, but I guess we'll find out.
I'm just here to squeal, man. I'm just here to squeal.
That's great. All right. So John, tell me first, tell me about yourself. Who is John Duran? Who are you?
Yeah, so great question. I'm the son of a military father. My dad served 26 years in the Army, started out in World War II, and served until I was about 8 years old. I'm not that old. He had a couple breaks, but I'm the youngest of 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. And we moved around a ton. Until I was 11 years old, we moved, I think, 5 times, right? And so that's kind of an important part of my journey because you learn a lot when you're constantly having to go to a new environment, find a way to fit in. Oh, by the way, you're on a military base, an Army base in our case, and about a third of the people leave every summer.
Wow.
And so right. You're one of the thirds that comes in, and there's a third that just left. And so there's this constant changing around you, right? And you learn to connect with people quickly. You learn to develop relationships in a certain way. You also learn maybe not to get too connected to people because you know that it's temporary in nature, right? So I did say that because some of those things become a part of my story long term, and some of them are good, and some of those things become a part of your story long term, and maybe they're not as good, and you need to know that limiting aspect of your story. So, grew up in the military, kind of spent my high school years in Colorado, playing sports, chasing girls, doing all the normal stuff, skiing, right. Camping, fishing, that kind of stuff. And I went to the Naval Academy, right. Graduated there, joined the Marines, flew in the Marine Corps for a number of years, fought in the first Desert Storm back in the first Bush era, and left the Marine Corps to go into consulting. Spent about 25 years in consulting, and every piece of that casserole of life has kind of influenced and informed my approach and style for leadership and the way that I value leaders and my responsibility as a leader.
Wow, that's great. Wow, that actually, and I know you personally. I didn't even know all that. I mean, for one, thank you for your service for sure. That's great. Yeah,
very welcome. Yeah, thanks for paying for my jet fuel.
That's right. Well, that's great. Well, you've flown with it. It's such an interesting. I love to hear it. I mean, it's such an interesting background. How you did military, of course. Your family was military, and and how you went into the corporate, right? Being a consultant. Now, I'm assuming you worked for a company being a consultant, correct?
I did. So when I left the Marine Corps, I joined Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture, and it was a really easy transition because Anderson had a high culture of the same esprit de corps that the Marine Corps had. The same, we all kind of start at the same place. We all go to the same training for the first 6 weeks. There was that common, very natural transition into Anderson Consulting. And after a period of time, Anderson started to change. It became Accenture, the culture and some things changed. So I did move around, and I've been part of my nomadic beginnings have showed up again in my nomadic career since leaving Accenture. I've been, I think, with about 10 different companies over the last 14 years. And I go in, I tend to have about a 24 to 36 months shelf life. And then I'm just kind of ready to do something different, right? And which is, again, a strength and a weakness if you don't know how to manage it. But
right,
yeah,
that's interesting. Which would be, in my opinion, the perfect recipe of doing your own thing, right? Kind of being the guy that goes in. I keep thinking of what's that guy in Pulp Fiction where the guy they call to come clean up.
Oh
they
yeah,
clean up.
yeah,
Kind of like that guy. Call him in, come and help us with our business as a consultant. But in the same breath, you're out. It's almost
right,
perfect. You're out a couple years. Give them the plans and the systems they need, and step away and go to another
right.
company that needs your help. Right.
Right. But it's part of my journey that led me to coaching because the more experience I got and the more senior I got and the more patterns I had seen in advising companies on strategy and structure and those types of things, the less my clients wanted me to actually help them. I'll just call it fix people, right?
Right.
Because you're getting in and helping somebody to be more successful in their current role. And the more they just wanted me to identify is Joe the right person to be our CIO? Is Susie the right person to be our COO? If not, that's great. Just give us a profile for the right person and we'll go get them. And that left like a half of my soul
Yeah.
disengaged from my work because I'm about people.
Right.
Even in the Marine Corps, you're about people. That you can't accomplish your mission without people. In consulting, it's an hours based business. You can't get revenue
Right.
without deploying people. And so the more I got into a space where I was working a lot with private equity portfolio companies post acquisition and coming in and building roadmaps and transformation journeys, et cetera. And then it's like, hasta la vista, baby. We love your roadmap, fantastic work. Now hit the bricks. We're going
Right.
to go do this on our own. And you're like, well, time out. I know the pattern of how this works. You're not going to go do it on your own, and you're going to struggle to get to the next transaction, and you're going to miss your mark with the your numbers with the private equity group, and so on and so forth. But I wasn't I was only living as a half of a person because I wasn't fulfilling my need to invest in people.
I love that. I love that. It sounds like there could be a lot of collateral damage with that. It seems like, you kind of give them a plan, you leave like, hey, well, good luck with the plan. And then, they kind of do their own thing.
That's really it. And I have a very high sense of stewardship around that. So I would look at it not just as the collateral damage, which you're spot on with that potential for collateral damage, but hey, you paid me a pretty nice fee, and these documents, for quite frankly, aren't worth the fee you paid me. It's the outcome of the documents that's worth more than the fee that you gave me, right? If you can actually accomplish the journey, if you can take that journey successfully to become to reach that next method of operation, then you're getting more than what you paid me. But if you just put those pieces of paper into a file cabinet virtual,
Right.
then why'd you do it?
That's interesting. That's interesting. So needless to say, I can see why you get burned out or you got burnt out for sure and want to
Yeah,
do your own thing. So that kind of leads me into, I guess, let's talk about what you're doing now, what you want to do. What do you, yeah.
sure. So I've always been invested in coaching and mentoring people since, again, back to really growing up, even right in my neighborhood and in sports teams, et cetera. But certainly, at the Naval Academy, you're developing your leadership style, you're developing it and you're practicing it on the juniors or the underclassmen, right? And on your peers. And in some cases, you're learning how to influence your seniors, right? So you're learning this 360-degree leadership style, right? And so you take that into the Marine Corps and you develop that some more. And I think and I was content with that part of the leadership. What I in my personal story is I got into my 30s and 40s. And one of the reasons I left the Marine Corps was I felt like, well, I've flown in combat. I've done really, it's almost like I went to the Super Bowl, we won. My mission was to protect other aircraft who were doing harm, right? And all my aircraft always came back. I'd count them when they got back on the ground with me. And so I felt success. But I told myself something at the time that was a bit of a lie, and I didn't realize it until really just recently. And that was that I had accomplished my life's purpose, my life's ambition from a purpose standpoint. Now it's time to go make some money, right?
Right.
So I left the Marine Corps. I'd also wanted. I'm married. I have 4 kids at the time. I had 3 and 1 more on the way. And I was like, I need to provide a more stable life for them and let them grow up with the same sets of friends and all that kind of thing. So I left the Marine Corps and I joined Anderson Consulting because at the time it was a limited liability partnership, and new partners made like $750,000. So I thought, okay, well, here is a path. I get on this path, I do well, I succeed, and this is my potential, and I can take care of my family, I can put my kids in the best schools, yada yada, so on and so forth, right? Well, what if and I knew this about myself, but I'm really not a money motivated person, right? I need to have money. Obviously, we all need to have money to survive, but just a little while ago, I realized, wait a second, the inflection point that I took in my early 30s took me off purpose. And I was trying to fulfill a deeper purpose by mentoring and coaching and solving business problems until I realized that, you know what, you don't really solve business problems. You provide managed care of a business problem because it just shifts and changes and there's a new one, right? So what I discovered recently was, well, dang it, my sole purpose still is unfulfilled because my sole purpose now is specifically for men. Don't lose a decade or more of your life doing something that doesn't make you feel alive and takes away from the deep connection with your children and with your wife and with your neighbors and with your community. And so as I slid away from my purpose, I was successful. I was productive. I was, raised 4 kids, got them through schools, and did all that stuff. Was, by all accounts, I was a good father, a good husband, all that kind of thing. But I realized that as my soul atrophied, actually my ability to be effective, not just effective, but maximally effective in those areas of my life started to diminish. It's the hindsight that helped me to see that. But that's why I don't want, and Jason, part of this is about the kids, because we're as men, we're going to live our lives, we're going to go and we're going to do things, right? But if you're not a fully awake, alive, really connected man, then your children are going to suffer and your wife is going to suffer. And that's not okay, right? I did it to some degree in my life, and I don't want to see other men do that. I want to give them at least the opportunity to live maximally connected to themselves, their families, their faith, and their business.
Was there ever, could you ever remember a point in your life on your journey where that came true? Like, you're like, you know what, this ain't working because you lost your purpose, or like you said, we were chasing money. Did you remember a specific point? You're like, man, what am I doing? Like, I'm just curious whether there's a point, like so someone listening, like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm working for this company. I'm doing great. I'm making $500,000 a year, but you know what? I'm just not fulfilled. And I think this is why I want to talk about this, because I think this is huge. I mean, truly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And I honestly, Jason, I think it takes one of two things. It takes somebody outside to really help you zero in on the root problem, or some kind of massive catastrophic event in your life, going bankrupt, doing something else, whatever, something tragic happens in your life, or an outside influence. In my case, it took a long time for me to get to the root problem. Part of my career changes were because I knew I could see the issue. And so I would say, well, I'm gonna jump back into corporate America. Oh, nope, I'm gonna jump back into independent. Okay, but nope, I'm gonna go do something different here, because I knew I wasn't fulfilled. I was making coin, but I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't complete. I wasn't whole, right? And it took a while for me to realize, oh wait, it's because none of the things that I am making my top priority are the things that are most connected to my soul.
Or fulfilling you, right? Absolutely. That's good. I think that's hard for people to recognize, or hard for people to see. And that's why I asked that question, because I mean, I'm guilty of that myself. I think we're all guilty, especially as men. And I'm a father as well too, and I don't know. We want to be great leaders, right? I guess that's what this whole
Right.
thing's about. But and that leader also is reflective on to people underneath us for sure.
Right. Right.
I,
Yeah. And, and it's easy because we have a very, if you're doing your job, you have a heightened connection to your need to provide and protect your your spouse and your children, right? Provide and protect. And it gets really easy to lose sight of the fact that the first place you need to provide and protect is your own soul. And you need to be providing for it and helping it grow, and you need to be protecting it and preventing it from being lost, right? It's the old airline oxygen mask scenario, right? If you pass out from oxygen deprivation, well, who's there to help the wife and kiddies, right? So
I love that. So what's your North Star right now? What's keeping you, I guess, moving forward? Because you're talking about, I'll call it pursuit, no pun intended, but your pursuit, your pursuit of, your optimal life. What is your North Star?
yeah, so it's interesting. We have we've got a frame, right? This four quadrants of the wheel that make us whole, right? So one is our bodies, right? Two is our being or our relationships with God and whoever our faith is in, right? Three is our balance, and four is our business, right? And so what I've been I've been on a journey over the last year, I guess, of really taking care of my body and really investing in that. And then sort of around the wheel to my being and my relationship with God and really reconnecting in a deep and meaningful and passionate way with the maker of the universe and the savior of my soul, right? Not just as savior, but as king, right? He is king, and I owe him my fealty, right?
Right.
And not because he needs it, but because I need it, right?
Right.
Which is reconnecting me with my relationships, because when you're not connecting with God, then you have leakage and you have areas of your life that can go off center, right? Lust, pornography, addiction to substances, whatever those things are. And whenever you have one of those things, of course, we don't want to be known as that guy. And so you start to feel shame and you disconnect and you start to shut down a little bit. And that carries over to your other relationships, and that
Right.
carries over to everything else. And so for me, it's, I can't be comfortable, right? I can't be sedated. I can't be in a place where I am not striving. And by reigniting the passion inside me, I've become more connected with my wife, right?
Love it.
I'm working on that intimacy and the sexual relationship with my wife, not as a negative, lustful kind of thing, but as a natural connection between myself and the bride of my youth, right? We've been married 39 years.
Congratulations.
And
That's great.
yeah, thanks. And I'm, very much in love with her. So I want to be connected with her. And I know that as I do this, the wheel is becoming stronger, and it will carry over into my business, because I'm going to be operating in the highest level of integrity with who I am. And there will be no, I have to hold back, I'm not confident, I'm not whatever. There's no fear of lack of authenticity, there's no imposter syndrome, there's none of that. I feel fully connected and unashamed of the man that God has brought me to be at this stage of my life. So I would say that right now, it's my current North Star is the deepest possible relationship with my wife and children, so that I can still be, you don't father a 37-year-old man the way you father a 7-year-old boy.
Right.
But
We
I
hope
still
not.
need,
Right.
yeah, right. And hopefully on both directions, right?
Right.
But so I need to be the best possible father to my adult children that I can at this stage of their lives. And I need to be the best possible husband to my wife. And if I am in alignment with that passion and pursuit, then it just flows into every other aspect of my life, right? So that's it. My renaissance is really my North Star right now, is becoming a complete man, and just operating in that completeness in all areas of my life.
That's that's a great answer. And I like what you said. And for, people listening, the same thing is, I think, as business owners or, entrepreneurs, we focus so much on business, right? Business, business, business. Well, if that, it kind of goes back to, your career history and your life history is, if that's all you're focusing on, well, that's not going to work. That shouldn't be
Right.
your North Star. Your North Star
Right.
needs to be exactly I love that, exactly what you
Yeah.
just said, because then it bleeds into being a successful business person. Then it bleeds into being successful in other areas of your life.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
love it. I love
Yeah.
39 years. I love what you said, 39 years married and you're in love with your wife. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, right?
Yeah.
There were years that I think what's the word with that I ditched it up, right?
Right.
So times when I dicked it up, right? When I
Right.
wasn't the best husband or wasn't the best father. And if I look at those years and those seasons, it was because I wasn't the best version of me.
Right. And
You can't,
that's a good question. What do you think your North Star was then? Like, what do you think
my
your focus?
absolutely the career, right?
Yep.
Absolutely
Exactly.
provide, make bank and provide, right?
Right.
And what ends up happening is the other parts of your life, those atrophy, and they no longer are a source of power. Now they're a source of drag because you haven't taken care of those, right? When you fly, there's a combination of every air surface or every surface as it moves through the air creates a combination of drag and lift, right? Depending on the shape of the wing. And if your shape of your wing is all business, then you're creating incredible drag in the rest of your life. And you're trying to compensate with this little bit of lift under the wing that's called, hey, sweetie, go buy yourself an iPhone. Hey, honey, go buy yourself an iPad, right? Oh, hey, you want a new car?
Right.
And meanwhile, yeah, they're happy for those moments, but
Short term.
there's just tremendous drag in your life and that the rest of the time, right? And you can't buy your way out of that, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and this is a frame that God showed me this morning, and so one of my goals is to do certain things with my body by the end of the year, right? I want to get back up to benching 240 pounds. I want to get up to squatting 300 pounds. I want to do these things,
Wait,
but
wait, wait,
today I
wait, wait.
didn't.
You bench 240 pounds?
Yeah, I did it on
Yeah.
my 61st birthday. No, actually, on my 61st birthday, I benched 225 pounds, which is the most I'd ever benched before. And
That's
then
amazing.
2 weeks, yeah, and then like within the next few weeks, I was up to 240, and then I scrapped it all because I realized that my foundation was not solid enough. I could kept doing that, but my form and my structure and my foundation wasn't adequate to do that sustainably and without injury and to grow from there. So I peeled all that back. I dropped about 15 pounds. But the thing that I know from doing that the first time was if I want to bench that much and I want to squat that much, and I'll probably just try to deadlift 400 pounds too. But the if I want to do that, I have to have a strong core. So today at the
Man.
gym, I worked on my core, right? And that was the realizing that the foundation of my power is a strong core, and that helps me to engage my quads for squats and helps me engage my chest and triceps for bench and things like that. But if I have a weak core, I'll never get those numbers, right? So
What a great analogy with everything we're talking about, right? I
exactly.
mean, that's the whole purpose of this all is really our core, right? I mean, great. I mean,
Right.
let's build that foundation. Let's build a core, and then and then we can achieve those big gains. I know
Right.
we're talking everything from business to personal. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what do you think the most common challenges leaders face today, and I don't know, and how would you recommend them overcoming those challenges? Let's say not just business owners. Let's say someone's listening and they're a leader in their company. What?
Right. Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges just with the leaders I've worked with is they're far too reactionary, right? And so they will try to think strategically, and then they'll quickly that we did the strategic exercise. The
Right.
exercise is complete. Go put that on the shelf, and now let's turn around and just start living our day, right? And let's start living this week and living this month. And they'll look at, oh well, I have these metrics that drive my incentive compensation, so I got to keep an eye on those. Or I've got these other metrics that I have to report to the CEO, so let's keep an eye on those. But they kind of lose the bigger picture. They lose the bigger context of what they're trying to do and how to do it sustainably. And don't get me wrong, there are great ones out there that do this very well, but too many men end up getting into, women too, but I focus on men. Too many folk end up getting into the living of life instead of mastering of life.
Like that.
And so, and I get it, right? I was that dude, right? And it's, you're up until midnight, tackling those last minute emails and all that kind of stuff. And then you're back up at 6. Back then we had to commute into our offices. Nowadays it's a little more, not a 5-day work week in the office, but for me that was sometimes as much as 2.5 hours to get into downtown Atlanta. And so now you do that, right? And so you're losing 2.5 hours, and you're in meetings all day, and you're doing this, and people are constantly, you're making sure that your team of 100 people can be maximally effective, and that your senior leadership's getting the information that they need, and
Right.
and when you're done with everybody's ands, you don't have anything left in the tank to develop yourself, develop your plan for growth, to, like Covey said, sharpen your saw.
Right.
And so that's the biggest challenge. And people start sliding into the, well, I'll, it's been a really tough week. I'm going to sleep until 6 tomorrow. Right. And I just need the extra time or whatever. And the exact opposite is the case, right? The exact opposite is, it's been a really tough week. I need to get up at 4 tomorrow so that I am ready to destroy the day rather than being destroyed by the day.
Like
And
that.
so it's a combination of maximizing your ability to produce by putting more time into your ability, your foundation for production, and doing it intelligently. So what is my plan for this week to increase my ability to produce in my body and in my beliefs and in my relationships and in my business? What is my plan? And now let me execute that plan. We get to a certain point where life is just so taxing that we not only fail to plan, we don't execute on the plan, even if we do it. Right. And so that I think is the biggest challenge, and why men burn out. It isn't because there's too much to do. It's because they're not doing enough to maintain and build their ability to produce. They're just focused on producing. It's like running a factory at 100% every day.
Right. Right. And being reactive, like you were saying, like, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're in a leadership role, like you said, I mean, it's a very, you're reactive to everything. You kind of mentioned earlier, we were talking about, the point you felt like, what, I'm making money, but I'm still, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. Did you have a mentor? Did you ever reach out to a mentor?
I did, but not every mentor is created equal.
Right.
Some view mentorship as it's important that you find the right voice in your life from a content standpoint and from a how do they value it, right? So a few of my mentors, I had one really good one, Tom Foster, just a fantastic human being. Really, really cared about people, but also cared enough to hold people accountable,
Right.
right, to themselves and to the mission, et cetera. But I've had others that were just, oh yeah, I'm in the mentorship program, so we're gonna meet on Thursday every month or the third Thursday of every month, and okay, the box is checked and they're off, right? And that's a different kind of scenario, right? To be a good mentor, you actually need to be connected with the person in a meaningful way and not in an obligatory way. So I've probably had one or two good mentors in my life, and work isn't always the best place to find them because there's just a number of reasons. Work isn't always the best place to find them, and that's that. So that's been a weak area of my life, and it's one where and this is not in direct response to your question, but it's adjacent. One of the things I realized earlier this spring was I kept finding myself you've heard the phrase iron sharpens iron, right?
Absolutely.
And I kept finding myself in places where I was the sharpest piece of iron. And so if I was rubbing against another piece of iron, it was getting sharper, but I was getting duller.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's fine. You invest in people that way, but you need to also have, to your point, you need to have relationships where you're not the sharpest piece of iron. You've got burrs and you've got crooked edges and things, and that's something needs to smooth you out and sharpen you. And I wasn't finding that. So connecting with people like yourself and with other mastermind groups where you're, hey, guess what? In this one part of my blade, I might be sharper, but these other areas of my blade that I'm rubbing against these men and women, that I'm not as sharp, right? I'll give you an example. Like one of the areas that in my consulting career, being professorial and highly intelligent and very thoughtful and thought provoking and really engaging at the head level is highly valued. But you can take that to excess and you can disconnect that intellect from your heart. And the answer is 100% correct. But it's also 100% meaningless because it doesn't connect with an individual in a way that they're going to be able to try to carry that message into action.
Right.
And
kind of what you said earlier. Yeah, you bet.
You got to learn to connect your heart to your words if you really want to have a whole body reaction by the listener, right? And so that's an area I'm not very good at yet, right? So it's an area I'm working on, hopefully a month from now we'll be better at that. But that's just something I just share that.
Well, I was going to say I disagree with you a little there. I think you're great at it. I mean,
appreciate
just
that.
me listening to you, right, draws me to you. And again, and I'm a big proponent of what we just said. Iron sharpens iron, and I say this a lot, even to a lot of young people that a counselor talk to. That get around a group. It doesn't have to be when a mentor doesn't have to be one person. It could be a group, right?
That's right.
Yep. Surround yourself with people. My boys would probably look at me and roll their eyes because they've heard this so many times. Surround yourself by people that influence you in a positive way, right? Or someone that's going to make you grow. Someone that's better than you, truly. I mean, truly. So that, again, because it's only going to sharpen you. I think that's great, and I think that's great for our listeners listening, and I think that's great advice. Which I'll ask you, if somebody listening is like, well, I don't have a mentor, what would you suggest a person do? If they didn't have a mentor in their life? It could be a young person, could be somebody in their career, could be somebody, a businessman listening. What would you give a suggestion or advice to them to find a mentor or a group? What?
Yeah, well, I would say it's probably a 3-step process. Right. And I think it's a great question. I'm going to think through this live while we're having this conversation. But the first 3 things that came to mind were, first off, confirm your commitment to the value of doing this. Like, is this really something that you believe in and are invested in and see the importance of? If this is something on a checklist because somebody said, oh, you should have a mentorship and you should have a coach in your life, that kind of thing, then I would say don't do it yet. Wait until you're feeling the pain of not having one and the failure. There's 2 ways that a person can feel pain. One is they can be in pain. And then it's the easiest way, right? Oh, my life is in the ditch. I sure wish I had a coach or mentor that I could go to. The second is, hey, I see the trajectory of where I want to go, but I can see that if I don't become that person, then I won't get there. And the fear of not getting there or of falling off of the place where I currently am, that's scary because I've risen up. I'm the senior vice president of XYZ, and I can see that if I don't handle my business, I'm going to be the former senior vice president of XYZ, right?
Right.
And so once you find a connection and a commitment to why you want one, then I think then the next question you ask yourself is, am I willing to invest the time in creating, in essence, my own mastermind group? Am I willing to go find 5 people who have complementary but different skill sets so that our Venn diagram overlaps, but we each have something unique that we offer, and just start your own mastermind group with the 5 people and meet on a regular basis. And it's kind of like, do you want to finish your own basement, right? And go through the whole process of having somebody come in and run electrical wire and then putting up the insulation and then putting up the sheetrock and then taping and mudding and sanding and vacuuming and all of that, hanging the roof, do you want to do that? to have a finished man cave in the basement, or do you want to meet with a contractor and say, hey, here's my idea, but you're the expert. You help me get to, this is what I want to get from the basement. How can you help me get there? Right. If you're not the DIY dude and your life is so full and you don't need to be figuring it out, then find a coach. Right? Find a coach, mentor, a professional coach or mentor. Some companies will pay for that. Otherwise, it's a small investment to make in you. I'll get a little graphic here, but in preventing you from fucking up your life.
Right.
Right. And you can bleep that out, I suppose. But
I'll check the
and
explicit box. Don't worry.
okay.
Yeah.
But I mean that's the real part of it, because there's two types. Again, the two types of doing that to your life are, one is you come crashing down, right, which is catastrophic and tragic, and you end in divorce, your kids are estranged, you get fired, so on and so forth. And it's not necessarily because you did something heinous. It doesn't mean you embezzled money. It just means that you did not continue to develop your ability to produce, and the position outgrew your capacity,
Right.
or your
Right.
competition outgrew your capacity to produce. And therefore it's like, guess what? Guess what? The world passed you. We gave you momentum. We hired you or we promoted you, and we gave you this momentum to spring forward from, and you took it as a momentum just to get to that level and cruise. And that's not why we gave you that title. We didn't give you that title as a landing spot. We gave you that title as a projection of your future capability, and you didn't do it, right? So that's one way, right?
Yeah.
Is you tragically fail. The other is you just end up at a level below where you should have, if you'd have pursued a maximal life instead of just optimizing your capacity in certain areas. Yeah, guess what? You kept your job, but you lost your wife. You kept your job and you stayed married in a crappy marriage, but you lost connection with your children. You saved some of those things, but guess what? Your health went to crap, right? And so this idea that if you don't, there's a lot of ways to mess up your life. And one of the easiest ways of being sedated is it's just not, it's a good life. I have a good life, but it wasn't your maximal life. It wasn't the highest rung of the ladder that you were capable of reaching. And it's okay, right? But it's disappointing, right? And you look back on that and you're like, dude, I had so much more than I accomplished, right?
I love it.
So that's, coming back to your question, that's my thing. First, get committed. Second, are you a DIY? Right. And then third, if you're not, recognize that investing in you is never a mistake, and go out and find a professional coach or mentor to work with.
110% agree with all that, especially the third, for sure. I tell people, even if you don't have the money, or find a professional coach or somebody to talk with on a weekly basis, which leads me perfect into, so let's talk more about some Maximal Men Movement, because that's why I got you here. Tell me about it. Tell me about your movement. Tell me, because I mean, what you've been telling me already, I'm assuming it's exactly what you do and who you work with. So let's hear about it. What do you want to do it?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's very much on point with what we just talked about. It's like, hey, it's if you're the type of person that just wants right? I have conversations on LinkedIn all the time, and I have men tell me that, oh no, I'm perfectly satisfied with being comfortable. I'm like, fantastic, I am happy for you. That's great. You're not my guy, right? I'm looking for the men that are not okay with okay. They want a maximal life. They want to have. I'm not suggesting they're going to be richer than Elon Musk, but they're going to be completely fulfilled because they pursued the highest peak that they can reach in their life, right? And we have tools and systems in place that have proven out over time that if you will just follow this course this course and this journey, this path, then you will take the move from this problem of scarcity thinking, which is, well, I only have X hours in a day, so I'm only going to do these things, and a whack-a-mole existence of, hey, I'll chase my body for this month, but oh no, now I'm not spending enough time with my wife and kids, so I'm going to go do this instead, and now that's going great, but I'm not taking care of this. And so that whack-a-mole life, and this is all about, okay, well, how do you create a framework structure, a set of goals, a pursuit of a really high goal, but the decomposition of that goal into monthly, weekly, and daily activities so that you can, at the end of the year, be amazed by what you accomplished. But Thursday looked completely doable because we broke Thursday down into these 4 things that you needed to do Thursday to win Thursday.
Right.
And so that's really the ideal, is to take maximal living, create a set of systems and patterns and behaviors and structures around you that allow you to accomplish much more than optimal. And just 6 months from now, forget a year, 3 months from now, people will be looking at you saying, what's happened? Like, what's different about you? Because you are not the same animal that you were 3 months ago, right?
Love it.
And I know this because I've seen it in other people and I've seen it in myself, right? Following this process. And then 3 months down the road, people are just kind of like, they're not afraid or anything like that, but they notice, like they're aware. And that's all it takes, guys. So it's 90 days and you're well on your journey to creating the pattern of behavior that will maximize your results in life.
Now, somebody listening now is like, yes. Well, for one, we kind of talked about the whole mentorship and, surrounding yourself with people that can sharpen iron. This is exactly what we're talking about, right? Your whole Maximal Men Movement. So how would we find you? Let's say someone listening like, yeah, that's me. I'm raising my hand right now. I love what John's saying. I need somebody like John in my life. How can they find you?
Yeah. So really, I do most of my outreach is organic, right? I do it through LinkedIn.
Great.
And so I am available on LinkedIn, / John M. Duran / and just hit me in the messages or with a DM, ask to connect. And, there's some stuff I can help you with just as a quick start to get your mind thinking about the first question, which is, do I even care about a maximal life? Right. And the first stage is to help you figure out whether that's part of what you want to do or not. And if it is, then we can engage and I can help you get through that journey from really, the analogy I would use is, I think I'd like to climb Mount McKinley, but I had no idea what it takes to climb Mount McKinley. So let me talk to somebody about climbing Mount McKinley,
right,
and go in on that. And then you learn and you think, oh, well, it's not like climbing Mount McKinley. It's got like, well, there's base camp and then there's this peak and then there's that camp and then there's so on and so forth. And you're like, you know what? I want to go to base camp. I just want to experience the journey to base camp. And guess what? If you go to base camp, you've now moved ahead of 99% of the population of the planet. Right. And then if you go to the next camp, well, now you're ahead of 99.4% of the planet. Right. And so that's the kind of conversation, right? Is, the first one is just, what do you want to accomplish in life? And, if you're not content, then okay, I can help you figure out what you do want and what. This is a little bit of a side, but we are liars by nature, right? and I don't mean like you
call me a liar, John.
yeah, and to a degree, you're less of a liar than you were 6 months ago, and the 99% of the population, right? But I'm still a liar because the first place that I lie to myself is about what I want in life, because I don't want to set myself up for disappointment. So rather than create a vision for something that's amazing, that is worth working towards, I create a vision for something that is adequate, that I can just meander towards. Right. And that's sort of the royal I or we, where it's like, hey, that's just the nature of men to do that too often. And men start doing that in their 30s. So kind of bringing it full circle back to, I started lying to myself right after Desert Storm, telling myself that I was fulfilled. Right. Like somehow your life's mission was an event that you would just accomplish and be done with, right? And the reality is, you're like, my purpose, my calling in life was to be that person who was invested in serving others and investing in making a better place in the world for the people I loved and cared for and all of that. And so all these things, So if you're somebody who realizes that you've been undershooting what you were created for, then let's talk. Or if so
You bet.
that's kind of the why I care about this, because I'm not doing this for the people that like to be in submission and in sedation. I'm doing this for the people that are now realizing that they've been plugged into the matrix and their life is only supporting and being valuable to others, and they need to maximize the value it is to themselves.
Yeah, I'd follow you. I'll tell you right now. I'd sign up, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, for anybody listening as well too, I will definitely put, John's links in the description, so you guys can click on his links or or rewind and to look for him in LinkedIn. But yeah, I think that's great. And John, I mean that's great. That's gonna kind of bring us to the end of our show. But I think it's wonderful. I think what you stand behind is wonderful. I think your movement is wonderful. I think Maximal Men Movement. I think that's what we need, truly, and that's the reason why I have you on this show. This is what
Right.
young people need. This is what people my age need. We need this. We need this in our life. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain it to us and follow your journey and listen to your your history and everything. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate being on, Jason. I think there's a lot of connection between absolute and maximal, right? There's
Right,
obviously just
for
in
sure.
syntax alone. And have a tremendous amount of respect for the work that you're doing and the calling that you have in your life and the folk that you're serving. So I'm always happy to connect with you, and we'll reciprocate as well.
Yeah,
So
for
thank you
sure.
for having me.
Yeah, you might be my first guest, but I guarantee you're going to be on here more and more. So
Fantastic.
thanks again, John. I appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you, Jason, for
And
having me.
everybody listening, you guys know you can go to the description and check out John's info. And I thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you, guys.